Hello Living Temple, and welcome to another sermon from our series He Is, I Am. And today we're looking at how He is the vine and we are the branches. Now I've heard a lot lately throughout this pandemic, a lot of people saying, and especially in our house, that we're never going back to the way things were before this. We're not going to be doing life the same. One thing that this pandemic has brought out is an opportunity for us as a country and as a culture to be able to reassess what it is that we're doing and the way that we do life, and what can we do better than what we have before. When we go back into normal or the new normal, how are we going to do each day? How are we going to do each week? How are we going to do each year? What are our priorities going to be? And where are we going to spend our time? Because our time is precious, our energy is precious, our relationships are so important. And God's call in our life and the purpose He has for us is amazing, and we're here for a purpose, and we want to be able to fulfill that without running around like headless chickens every single day. So for many of us, we have taken a step back through this time and we've looked at how busy we've become. There has just been so many things that we do where we're so busy. Now for me, I have an amazing woman in my life called Shirley Ross, and she takes time out of her life and she takes me to breakfast. Sometimes she gives me massages, but every now and again she comes up to me and she says, "Jess, I'm really worried about you and Dave. You know, you're doing so much. I see what you're doing, and I'm concerned that you're not taking enough time for yourselves." And I often respond to her, you know, I know that Dave is not really good at this. He needs to work on his discipline and boundaries and saying no, but I've got this. I'm really good at this. I know what it's like when I don't have boundaries, and I know what it's like when I don't take enough time for my mental health. I've been there and I'm not there again. You don't need to worry about me, I'm fine. Looking back, Shirley, you were right. I thought, and in amongst the busyness of what everyone else was doing, and in relation to what everyone else was doing, I thought that I had this nailed, that I was really good at finding a fantastic balance in my life, when in reality, I needed to take a step back and reassess what I was doing each day, and my priorities for each day, and the way that I spent each minute of each day, and what it looked like. And the big question, was it even fruitful? You know, Australian culture, and we need to make sure we're always looking at the culture around us to make sure that we see, you know, who it is that we're reaching with the love of Christ. But not only that, but to see where culture may be creeping into the church. Australian culture, it's work hard from Monday to Friday, or mostly work hard from Monday to Friday. And then the weekend is run as far as you can from anything that's responsibilities, anything where you feel like it's work, and you live it up. You go drink with your mates, you go have as much fun as possible, because that is the Australian version of balance. You work hard, and then you play hard, and then you do it all again. Now, we need to ask ourselves, has this come into our understanding of what our work week should look like, or what our lives should look like? Look, it's not even about our mental health and how we feel. It's about living a life that counts, one that produces good fruit. So let's all go back to the drawing board and see what it is that Jesus does, because He is our leader, He is our teacher, and we should be following Him and His example in all things. And He shows us what it is like to live a life that counts, and how we are to approach each day in order to be purposeful and fruitful. So let's look at both His life and His teachings, and I want you to open up your Bible to John chapter 15. And in a second, I want you to pause me, and I want you to read John chapter 15, verses 1 to 17. And once you finish doing that, then you can press play again. And we'll have a bit of a chat about what it means to live a life of purpose. And as Jesus is teaching us about the purpose and the meaning of life and what it means to live a fruitful life, He describes Himself as the vine and His disciples, or us, as the branches. And there are two key elements that he brings out here into how we can live lives that are productive and meaningful and producing good fruit. The first one is abiding, that we abide in him and he in us. It's like coming and living inside of. The second thing is pruning. Let's look at this second one first. Now, God is the gardener, the Father will come into your life and he's going to cut things off. My mum is an incredible gardener and she mutilates her plants. Part of gardening and good gardening is knowing at the right time to get a tree or a plant and to cut it back so that in the next season it's going to be more fruitful. So part of our being fruitful in our life is knowing when and what God is doing when he comes and cuts things out of our lives. Now, this could be painful, but it also can be relieving. This last season, I believe, has been a real pruning season for our church as we have cut back every activity except a couple of things like life groups and sermons and just communication about how everything's going. And we have just gotten back to the basics of what it means to be the church. But God's going to continue pruning you in your life with many different things. So it could be relationships, it could be unhealthy things in your life that he's just cutting away from your life, a certain sin perhaps. Maybe it's a habit, maybe it's a possession that you have, maybe it's a job, it could be something even as fantastic as, where you live. So these things, we don't necessarily know what they're going to be because we are not the person who is the gardener. We just need to submit to the gardener who is and allow him to do the work in our life, taking away the things in our life that really need to go. And the ultimate thing about this is they're not just being taken away for the sake of being taken away. They're being taken away for the health of the plant. They're being taken away for our benefit, that in the future we will grow better, we'll be more vibrant, and we'll produce greater amounts of good quality fruit. So what is God asking you or taking from you in this time to be removed from your life in order that you can be more fruitful in the future? Okay, so secondly, we just get comfortable. Secondly, we're looking at abiding. So abiding means to come and live in. And Jesus says, he's the vine and we are the branches. So often when we're looking to become productive, we add activities into our day. And as we do so, we look at things like prayer and reading our Bible and taking time just sitting with God and meditating or just listening to worship and having that time. And we look at that and we think, oh, that's a bit time consuming. And I don't have to do it to become a Christian. So I'll cut that out of my life and I'll be more productive as I add on X, Y, Z. But what Jesus is saying here is that we can only ever live our true productive and fruitful life when we're connected with him. So when we're cutting out those things from our life, essentially we're removing ourselves from our life source, and then our life begins to wilter and wither and fade, and we don't produce fruit. And we look around and we say, we are so busy, and yet where's the fruit? I do so much. What does it come to? If we're going to be investing into anything, we need to be investing in our relationship with Jesus, because that is where we'll find our nutrients for our soul and our life and our purpose. And as we allow him to live in us and through us, as we find ourselves in him, it's in that relationship that we will naturally produce fruit. If producing fruit is difficult for you in your life, then you need to maybe step back and ask the question, how is your abiding with Jesus going? Because any gardener will know, if you want good fruit, you don't look at the quality of the fruit, you look at the quality of the plant that it's coming from. If a branch is hardly attached to the rest of the vine, it is not going to be producing even healthy leaves or colour, let alone producing fruit. So how is your abiding with Jesus going? Now, in saying that, let me just qualify something for a second. Abiding in Jesus doesn't necessarily mean you go and find yourself an island and you sit there by yourself and you have some epic praise and worship for years on end, just you and Jesus. We need to take a look at what Jesus defines abiding by. He says in verse 10, if you keep my commandments, you are abiding in my love. So it's actually a matter of not only resting and taking time to be apart with Jesus, but it's actually walking and living and loving like Jesus. Because in verse 12, he gives the commandment to love one another as he has loved us. We can't be keeping Jesus' commandments if we're separated from the world and abiding for the entirety of our life away from others. Now, for some of us, you might sit there and go, oh, okay, so now you're telling me I just need to have more quiet times. I can't think of anything worse. Let me share with you something. I may be a pastor and I love Jesus. This last week, I saw the prayer week was coming up for Queensland Baptist. So this week, we're up to Friday now, and it's had a prayer week, and we've been praying for all sorts of things. And when that first came out, I went, oh, I have really a lot of things to be praying for already. I have, our church, our family, our school, our community, all these sorts of stuff. God put things on my heart and I'm praying for that. And just to adding all these extra things on, I'm not sure, but I was reading this book and it really challenged me. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to take part in this this prayer week. I do know it's important and it's something I've been challenged in. So I'm going to take part. And let me tell you that this week, having this prayer time, and I've just been following through the devotions that they gave out, the different ways to pray, and some of the nights we've been doing it with our family. It's been incredible. But my passion and love and joy for just spending time with Jesus has just increased. Have a look at verse 11. Jesus isn't telling us to do this because it's a hardship that we must take on in our Christian faith to go apart and spend some quality time with him. No, he says, these things I have spoken to you, that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be full. Learning to abide in him, which includes making sure we're really connected with him and living in him and him in us and going and doing what it is he's commanded us to do, should be something that brings us great joy. So, how do we do it? Well, firstly, Jesus is our example, always. And we see him often pull away by himself, and his disciples have to go find him, but he goes away and he spends time with the Father. Sometimes it's at long periods where he has 40 days in the desert to go and be tempted, but he's following the leading of the Spirit and he's going away for a long period of time. Other times he's pulling aside his disciples and teaching them to rest and going, okay, there's a big crowd here. We've been doing a lot, guys. Let's just step back and come over here and we're going to have some rest. Then he doesn't stay there, but he goes from that place of rest out into the world, following the leading of the Spirit and doing whatever it is that God the Father is showing him to do as he lives and he loves perfectly. What we need to be able to do is finding a rhythm which leads us to a fruitful balance between work and rest as we abide in Jesus in both. So recently I read a book called Building a Discipleship Culture by Mike Breen. And I'm going to do something that he said absolutely not to do in the book, but I do believe that we live a discipleship culture already, and this is to be a part of that. But this is just a tool to add to your belt to encourage you as to how to abide in your everyday life. Now, this is something that challenged me personally, and it's just something that might help equip you as you try and find a balance between work and rest in your life in a way that follows the leadership of Jesus and not just the culture of our world. So This principle in this book is called the principle of the semicircle. It's a life shape. So you guys know what a semicircle looks like. But this semicircle is like a pendulum. And on one side of the pendulum, one swing, is work. Now, we've done series before. We know that we are made to work. Our lives are designed to work. It doesn't mean necessarily that you're working in a job, in an office. It could be that you're studying. It could be that you're parenting. It could just be that you're intentionally doing different things, even in your retirement. But your life is made for a purpose, and you are meant to go out each and every day and do that. So when we work, we should be working with God and abiding with God. Look over our last series if you have any questions about how that might look with work and purpose. But work is something that we are made to do, and that should definitely be a part of our life. But just as much, we also need to be intentionally resting. On the first full day that Adam and Eve spent after creation is a day of rest. And the question that we need to be asking ourselves, and that this book posed and challenged me, is that are we resting from our work, or are we working from a place of rest? Let me say that again. When you rest, are you resting from your work, or are you working from a place of rest? We need to be living in this place of rest, which then we go out and do our work. That way we can be abiding in both. Now we need to do both intentionally. So let's have a look at just a few of the things that this chapter in this book suggests. Now, I'm not saying that this is the way you have to do it. I'm not saying that to be a Christian, you have to wake up in the morning and read your Bible for half an hour, and then you got to pray for 2 hours, and then you need to do the X, Y, Z. We know that that is not the truth, and that is not how we are saved. But what I am challenging us as a church, and me personally, for us to find a rhythm in our own life, to make sure that we are working and that we're resting intentionally, and that we're doing it as we're abiding. Now, this is a tool that maybe can be used in your challenge as you're trying to figure out what that might look like as we go back into the new normal. So, each day. First, we're looking at each day. So, each day needs to have work, relationships, and recreation. So, what they suggest is even just try this for a trial period and see how it works for you. 8 hours of sleep, 8 hours of work, 4 hours of engaging, and 4 hours of disengaging. And setting your life up so that you're doing that each day. And just like Jesus, in each day, finding a rhythm that works where you are abiding, alone with the Father, together with others, and then at work throughout your day. Now, a recent study I saw showed that people who read their Bible and have their quiet time with the Lord in the morning are far more likely to be consistent than those who do it late at night before bed, because we have so many things, and it's so many more variables that we do at night time than we do in the morning. So I challenge you, if you find it hard to find a rhythm with reading the Bible, with having some time with the Lord, just try for a couple of weeks in the morning. See how that works out for you. But it's even important to look at things like recreation and sleep. It doesn't always have to be your time apart is going and having this time of intense Bible study or anything like that. It's making sure that you have a good relationship with recreation as well as sleep, having a good sleep. I don't know if you know, but I sleep with a mask on at night because I have severe sleep apnea. And if I don't get enough sleep, and for years I wasn't getting enough sleep, and it messed up my day so bad, and you can't be being productive and fruitful in your abiding, in your work and the rest in the day if you haven't had enough sleep. It's simple things like this. Okay, so looking at your day, have you got a rhythm for rest and with work in your day. Then you look at your week on the wider scale. Do you have a Sabbath day? A day where you stop working, maybe you turn your phone off, and you rest. Now, rest is going to look different for an extrovert than it is for an introvert. So extroverts will want to be spending quality time with people. And even if you are an extrovert, you should still be withdrawing from people for a time and spending some quality time with God. But for you, rest is going to look different than an introvert who's probably going to want to just go and spend some time by themselves, and that is rest. You have to find what works for you. So are you finding rest in your Sabbath day? For Dave and I, that looks like a Friday because we don't rest on Sunday. But also in your week, make sure that you are scheduling in your relationships that you want to be engaging in. You know, the people in your blessing list, the people who are in your family, the people in your life group. Scheduling those things in first, putting priorities in first. Then over the month, scheduling in your celebrations with people, you know, birthdays, all that sort of thing, but also schedule in your retreat times where you can just step away from everything for an extended period of time and just recalibrate where you're at and what God's saying to you and what the next month should look like ahead. Then on a wider scale, understanding what season you're in. Now, you can only really understand what season you are in if you are spending that time connecting with the Father who knows what season it is. So for some of you, you might be like, I have young kids. Spending 4 hours by myself is a dream. I wish I could. So this season is going to look slightly different for you, but you need to find a way to make it work with what you've got. You're also going to be having benefits, like say if your child is sleeping through the day that other people won't have, where you get to maybe spend that time then, or maybe, you know, doing a school run on your way to school, just, you know, putting on some worship and having some time with the Lord then. It's not a prescription. I'm not going to give you an ABC, what abiding in Jesus looks like, what it looks like to have a healthy work rest balance, and each season is going to look different, but you need to really spend that quality time with Jesus and sit down and go, okay, what season am I in? What way do you want me to work now? Are you stretching my capacity now? Sure, that's great, but after that, how am I going to find a season of rest after that? Okay, so Jesus is our vine and we are the branches. We want to be living lives, and as we start going back and restrictions start lifting, we start going back to the new normal, make sure you don't just jump into every opportunity that there is. Make sure you don't become lazy in your approach to each and every day, but God has prepared good works in advance for you to do, and that needs to be in the relationship of coming out of rest and abiding in Him. And as you go about your work, not doing it for money, not doing it even for your mental health, as great as that is, but you're actually going to work for a purpose, because God has got some wonderful things ahead of you for your days. And there are people out there who need the loving touch of Jesus in their life. And they need to have that encouragement. They need to have that word. They need to hear that blessing, and they need to feel those prayers. And to be led by Him, we need to be making sure that we're giving out every day to Him. Not working crazy busy, not being lazy either, but just following Him and finding the rhythms of grace in our life. So I pray that you can do that, and as you sit down and have a look at that this week, that God really blesses you as you do that. And hopefully you can join us on Sunday night for the Queensland Baptist prayer meeting. It's going to be online, and I'll put that information up on this website as well. So God bless you. Have a fantastic week. Bye.